Assalamualaikum. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm outside today. Hi, Emily. I'm really looking forward to our talk. You guys, this talk I've been waiting to do, and I don't know if any of you guys know, but I'm really big on screen time and just figuring out what is best for our kids. And this is something that, even when I had my first child, in the beginning, when people say, oh, you don't have to have any screen time, it's best if they just play. And then the reality hits and we're all giving our kids screens. But at that time, I think one of the best things that I did was I totally delayed screens. And that made a huge difference. And now with my youngest, he sees my older ones on screens, and then he's kind of like, oh, can I watch? It just started really slowly, and all of a sudden he has screen time when my first at that age never did. So I totally get where everybody's coming from when they have to go through all of these things. And with my son, he'll have tantrums and I'll just be like, oh my gosh, I can't be the only one. So I reached out to Emily Cherkin. She's a screen time consultant. Let me just give a quick intro and then I'm going to bring her up. She's a former middle school teacher. She taught for 12 years and she works with parents, companies, schools, and helps them become more tech intentional, which is her brand. And she's also an activist in the field. And so she knows what's going on legislatively and like in politics and in the tech companies. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Good Morning America, and she's been on the Today Show. And also she's a parent to 2 kids herself. So she totally understands. And I can't wait to get into this topic, you guys. Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you. How are you?
Good. You're in Seattle, right?
I am, yes, and you're in California?
Yeah. So today is really nice. I'm outside.
I'm jealous. It's very cold and foggy here today. So I miss the sun.
I reached out to you, and I think I put a video on my stories. It was just the sound, the audio of my son having a tantrum after screen time.
Yeah.
And then I just had tagged you to that, and then and you replied to me, and that's really comforting to know. So tell us, Emily, why is this so difficult to have these limits? Even when we kind of agree on it beforehand, why is it so difficult and we're like battling with our kids?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you and your community, because you are absolutely right. You're not alone. And this is something that affects families around the world. And I think the pandemic definitely took a problem that already existed and made it a lot more intense, because we were learning and working from home and trying to stay in touch with people. But there is actually a reason why it's so hard for us to put our screens down. And this is one of the things I love to talk to parents about, because I think when parents understand this, it helps us manage the conflict better. So there is something, and your video clip or audio clip really highlights that meltdown. I think if we were to ask how many parents have ever had the experience when you take the phone or the iPad away, your kid falls apart. Well, what's happening here is that our brains, and especially our children's brains, really like the experience of being on the screen. So it feels good, it is fun, and they don't want to stop doing it. And what I've learned in my work, and this was really made me really angry, it's just why I get involved in the activism piece of this, is that these products are designed to hook and hold our attention. It's actually a term for it called persuasive design, which means that, anytime, I'm sure adults have this experience, you watch a video and then it loops to the next video, right? We don't have to do anything, it just automatically plays. That's a form of persuasive design. Or the fact that I can scroll through Instagram and I never hit a bottom. It's designed to keep me on longer, because then the more eyeballs and time we spend, the more money a company can make. So the thing about that I find so egregious for children is that for adults, in theory, we can manage this, right? We can say, oh, I can put it down, in theory.
Yeah, that's hard for us.
for us. And so that's where I say to parents, like, if it's hard for us, think about our children whose brains are not adult brains. They're very, very different. And they don't have that executive function, which is that part of our brain to regulate emotion and understand time. They don't have that ability. So when they have that meltdown, we actually can predict. We know it's going to happen in some form, whether it's tantrum or crying or angry outbursts or mean words for intervening in that feel-good brain chemicals that are going through and making them feel good, and we take it away, we interrupt that. So no wonder they lose their minds about it.
And something that you told me on the in the message was that it's not a fair fight. So that really calmed me down, because I was able to empathize with him. I was able to empathize instead of like getting mad about, hey, we agreed to this. Why are you still having a hard time? You shouldn't be. And you should know that we go through this every day. So I was able to be like, oh my gosh, he can't control that. It's not something that he's intentionally doing on purpose.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. And I'm glad it resonated, because it really is. I think parents feel so beat up about all of the parenting decisions we make. It's so hard to be a parent, and we feel judged. And I love all of your positive messaging about shame-free parenting. I mean, that is so important. And I think it ties into the screen time piece so clearly, because we get so reactionary. We get mad when they get upset because we feel like we failed somehow. And you're right. If parents can understand that it is not a fair fight, when our kids are having that tantrum, we are fighting with the design of the product and what the tech companies have done. We are not fighting with our child. Our child's not a bad person or a weak, weak temperament. It's not a fair fight. So if we
and
can
it's not us,
that,
right? Like you were saying that it's not our kids who are bad, and we're not bad either.
Exactly.
We're all in different phases of our life, and sometimes we use that as a way to decompress or just part of our routine, and we don't want to take something fun away from our kids. It's just that there's other things that we have to do, and it's kind of like it gets interrupted. That whole them getting upset, it just messes up like our whole rhythm for the day, it seems like.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where the idea of replacing judgment with curiosity, which is something I learned a long time ago in a mindfulness parenting class, or a mindfulness class for adults before I had kids, right? And you have time to do those things. But it really resonated, because I think if we can, when our kids are having those meltdowns, we can stop and we can go, okay, wait a minute. I know that the meltdown right now is not because I said no. I mean, yes, it is, but it's not. The brain is having this response. So we can then have that conversation. We can say, we name it, we can narrate it. I see this is so hard for you to turn it off. I know how much your brain wants you to keep playing on the iPad. We can have empathy for them and know that this is a struggle. I love that you said that. That's exactly it. Yes.
And one of the things that a lot of people ask is like, how can I prevent this tantrum? Do you have any suggestion, like after they're done?
Yes, this is a great question. And I'm really a big fan of preventative solutions, right? Yes, we want to have the strategies for when the meltdown happens, and we should assume it does, right? I think that's the thing too. We act like we're surprised, but it happens every time. So we have to assume that's going to happen, and we have to leave time for it. I think to be proactive, we can talk to our kids ahead of time. Like, this is one of those moments where I'm going to give you the iPad time, or you get to watch your show. I know it's going to be really hard when that time ends. So let's make a plan now. When you have all that energy in your body after it's over, how are you going to channel it? What do you want to do? And it depends a little on the age of the kid, but maybe it's, I need to run up and down the stairs 10 times, or I need to go jump rope, or I need to go sing really loud outside, whatever it is for that particular child. So you make a plan ahead of time. Again, we know the meltdown may still happen, but then we stay calm and we say, remember our plan. Are you ready to go have your plan? We might also need to just say, you need that 5 minutes, 10 minutes to have the breakdown, the meltdown. And we can tell our children, we can celebrate the successes. We can say, today it only took you 10 minutes to come back, to get that meltdown, whatever it is, to get your emotions in control. Wow, last week it was 20 minutes. That's a huge improvement, right? So we want to celebrate the good, even if it's little. Those things matter.
Yeah. And I think something that you said is like having a plan.
Yes.
So I started to do that because it was just, I don't want to deal with that every single day. But part of it is me telling myself that you can, if this is what you're deciding, if you decide to give him screen time, whether he's playing a game, whatever he's doing, then that comes with it. So are you willing to take that on too? So
I love that. Yes.
So then I'm not fighting against something that, isn't in my control.
Yes.
And so that helps me regulate. So then I'll say, what can my kids do? So sometimes because it's nice here, I'll be like, okay, we're going to go outside at 2:00 and that's when you're done.
Yes.
So we're going to go out for a bike ride from 2 to 3.
Yep.
Or I'm going to run errands, whatever it is. But I also have to mentally prepare myself.
Yes.
So even in the bike ride, when he has a tantrum, what am I saying to myself?
Yes. Yes.
And one thing that after you told me, it became kind of like the mantra is that it's not a fair fight.
Yes.
So when I say that to myself now, then it immediately makes me calm. And when I'm calm, then I can co-regulate. Then he can co-regulate with me, and then get to his calm faster.
Yes.
Versus if in my head I'm like I look calm, but I'm like, I'm just like, I'm so irritated, and anyone can tell in my body language, in my tone, and of course our kids can totally pick up, what we're really feeling.
Yes.
And that makes them even more dysregulated.
Yes. And I love that because it's about us as parents doing our job as parents. And again, I'm going to be the first to say that this is not about perfection. I used to tell parents it's about 80-20. 80% of the time we parent within our values. We parent the way we want to parent. But we get to cut ourselves some slack too. We're not perfect. And I was joking in the last couple of years, let's go for 60-40 even. It's okay if it's not all the time. The other thing that parents can remember, and I love the modeling of that regulation for you as the adult. Wow, that is so powerful. But also after the fact, let's say your kid has a meltdown and you yell at them. Well, that's going to happen. So guess what? It's not over. You get to go back and say, gosh, I really lost my cool back there, or earlier today or yesterday. I owe you an apology. I didn't handle that well. And again, like, what a great opportunity. It's a teachable moment for our kids. That's so important. Exactly. I love that you said that.
Yeah. And so now when it comes to, I know a lot of people probably ask you this, well, how much is enough? And I think it really depends on so many factors.
Yes.
Sometimes it's our circumstance. I know with my first two, when they were younger, I had read a lot of books on, like a place that I worked at. My boss was reading a book on like the negative effects of television.
Yes. Yes.
And so I started reading those books. So then by the time I had kids, I was like, I'm not going to have any screen time. They didn't even have iPads, but I'm not going to do that. And then I had to think of what am I going to do instead then?
Yes.
And I was able to actually follow through with that. And I really delayed screens. My son didn't play computer games until the pandemic. He was 12.
Yeah.
But he was still tech savvy. He knew how to do things, but we didn't really have that. And it's just that I see a difference in how he grew up without a lot of tech, because I was able to. I had help. I was physically and mentally, and I was in an environment and circumstances that I could do that. And it was a privilege. Right. It's a privilege to be able to.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. I agree completely that sometimes this is just not at people's top priority. And
exactly.
I understand. And again, that's where I replace judgment with curiosity. Like, I always joke, I need a little sandwich board that says, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you, because I think we all feel defensive about our parenting choices. Yeah. And I think it's a great example in your own family that you can see how different your oldest younger years were compared to your current youngest child. And I have a 13 and a 10-year-old as well. So even those few years I see, and I want to say right off the bat that it is never too late to make positive changes. So delay, delay, delay is one of my mantras. But even if your kid has had access to screens and technology at an age younger than you felt good about, it's not too late to make changes. And you're right, that is a question I get asked. That's probably the number one question, is how much is too much? And here's my answer. And it's not particularly helpful. I'm being a little bit cheeky, but I say a little bit's okay and a lot is too much. And the reason I say that is because every child is different. You know, in your own family, your kids at the oldest to the youngest are totally different children. And so the other problem is that not all screen time is created equal. And so it's very different if, you know, you're engaging with a relative in a different city and you're talking over FaceTime. That's a very different experience than being by myself in my room on social media or playing a game. And so when we give these, I think parents want a number because it makes them feel better. Oh, we only did 2 hours, but 2 hours of what? And then the other part of that is, what is displaced? So there's a wonderful researcher, Dr. Doug Gentile, who has studied this. And he's like, not so much about how much time kids are on the screen, but how much time they're not doing other things. And for our childhoods, it's so different. Watching TV when I was growing up is not at all like watching TV now. It's funny we even call it TV, right? Because it's streaming. It's 24/7. And we used to, do you remember this? We had to wait for a show for a week. And that's not something our children have an experience with anymore. So I think that's a really important thing for us to remember. I hear parents say that a lot, like, well, it's like when I was a kid, I watched TV, I played video games, and I turned out fine. I hear that a lot. And it's totally different, in part because of persuasive design. You know, it wasn't like that when we were growing up.
And they have psychologists working with companies to design these shows and games. And it is addictive, and and everybody knows that. It's addictive. Everybody knows that. So when I give my kid permission to play this game that's highly addictive for even adults, then I have to take what's the bad with the good, you know? So that half an hour that I get, that 45 minutes that I get of peace, and it's, you know, the kids are safe, you could do whatever you want, you can take a nap, but then I also have to take what comes after that.
I love
and
that.
I think just thinking of it like, you know, okay, that's going to be my responsibility, and I'm going to own that. So what can I do instead? And also, when they're not on the devices, what are they doing? Do they feel connected? Do they feel engaged? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they experiencing anxiety? What are they experiencing?
Yes. I love that. I feel your posts resonate so strongly with me. I feel like our values are very in sync. So I love hearing you say that. And I have 3 questions that I give parents to think about when they decide to choose, you know, to hand over a screen, because you're right, that short-term gain can come with a longer-term cost. And so the first question is, what do you gain? Which, for obvious reasons, usually it's peace and quiet. I get a break. I can go do some task, make dinner, make a phone call. Those are easy things to answer. There's something to gain. The second question, though, is what do I lose or replace, right? So maybe I'm going to lose an opportunity to connect with my child. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to replace something, though. Maybe it's an opportunity for that child to go be doing something with their hands, and instead I'm replacing it with the screen. And then the third question is the parenting piece. What do I model? What do I show my child about more moments of boredom or stress? Am I reaching for my phone? Am I tuning the world out? Because as you wisely point out, kids watch it and they learn from what we do. So that again doesn't mean we shouldn't give them screen time. Again, I always say I'm not anti-technology, I'm tech intentional. So if you can go through those 3 questions, and in that moment it feels like, nope, right now they can have that hour or 30 minutes or whatever. We have to take, as you say, the good with the bad.
One of your YouTube videos, you were talking about how you were a 7th grade teacher, and how before in your career, how no one had, you know, phones and stuff. And then afterwards they did, and all the kind of questions that you got. And one of the things that you mentioned was that, well, the kids were like, well, my dad's always on Facebook. My mom's always on her phone. You know, like, why are they always getting mad at us when they're the ones who are modeling it? And I
That was
thought that was
a
really,
huge turning point for me, because initially I thought, oh, I got to help kids. They're coming into my classroom thinking about all these things they missed out on. FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. All of this sense of like, oh, there was a party and I didn't get invited and someone posted a picture.
yeah.
But then when I started to talk to them, they really pushed back. It was the children were my teachers, right? They said,
Yeah.
no. This is our parents. And I thought, oh, this is a parenting challenge. This is not a kid problem. This is a parent challenge. Yeah.
So something that we implemented in our home was that between the times that we picked a time, so between 5 and 7, no tech, no phones, no audiobooks, nothing. Not for them and not for us.
Beautiful. And that's for everybody in the family.
Yeah,
that's
the whole
key.
family.
Yeah.
Exactly. No one's going to pick up their phone. It's on silent. I'm not reaching for it to check anything.
Yeah.
If there's something that came up and then I'm like, okay, well, I write it down a Post-it note. I'm like, okay, I forgot to call my dad. Okay, I'm going to do that after.
And putting it on paper. I love paper.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And I think that's such a great point. I actually turned off all my text notifications on my phone permanently. So I don't get a it will illuminate the screen, but it won't make a noise or vibrate. And I tell people that and they're like, oh, I would miss stuff. I've never missed a text because I'm always surrounded by my tech. So it just doesn't interrupt me in the middle of something else. It doesn't, kids have you noticed children's behavior deteriorates when we're on our devices, right?
Exactly.
They work
even when we had a phone, right? When phone that's on the wall, right? Anytime it rings, then that's when your kids need you. Oh, mom, or they're asking for you. So because our attention isn't with them.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that I think we have to realize is that, are they getting the attention that they need? And sometimes maybe something earlier happened and then they were kind of disconnected, or we yelled at them or something happened and then they got the screen, and after that they're even more disconnected. And now how many steps or how much further away are they from us?
Absolutely. Oh, I think that's beautifully put. And they're deferring the feelings, right? It's okay to take time to process, but we don't want our kids to use the screen to bury some emotional experience that we want them to come and talk to us about. And I have a rather strong opinion about parental controls. I don't know if you saw my post about that. I actually don't recommend parental controls. I recommend parenting. And again, I'm being a little cheeky about it because I think if parents have them and they use them and they're beneficial, I'm not going to suggest you take them away. But too often parents want that to be the solution and that's it. And it doesn't exempt us from building the relationship and focusing on the connection with our children. We can't outsource that at all.
Yeah, we can't. That's I saw that, and you can't replace us. We're not replaceable.
Nope.
And one of the things that I think a lot of times, at least for me, I feel like it's just overwhelming to have this battle. So what I did was that instead of think of it as a battle, and a lot of times we use it as leverage, right? If you get this done, it's like a prize.
Yes.
And that's the whole goal, is to get screen time as the goal.
Yes.
And I realized that I was thinking, like, why are my kids like that? Then I realized that I'm the one who set it up like that. I set it up where the goal was to get this.
Yes.
Your reward is this. And when I took that away and I just made it into our daily routine instead, and this is the order of the way that the day is going to flow.
Yes.
And these are different options that you could have in this free time. Instead of saying that, okay, this is your screen time, I made it free time. And then I put a list of different things that they could do in their free time. You have 2 hours of free time, and you can you either use it to listen to an audiobook. You could use it for your half an hour of screen time. You can use it to play outside. So, or whichever order you want to do it in. I think that became an option instead of like, oh, this is something that I really want.
I love that. And I often will tell parents, do not use screen time to incentivize, punish, or reward, because exactly what you just said, if you give it that much power, that's all they're going to want to do. And they're going to work towards it. And they're going to only do the things you expect or want because they want that in return. And
Yeah.
we don't want to give it that much power.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that you just reframed it too as like free time, which
Yeah.
sounds great. Kids love free time, right? Like,
Yeah. And before that, we did do it that way because my husband was like, okay, if you get your work done, then you get screen time. If you don't get your work done, you don't get screen time. So some days we're like, well, I'm not going to do my work. Fine. I don't care if I don't have screen time. And I was like, we can't do that. We have to, we can't give it that much power because then we get as much angry about it as possible. And then there's that battle. So I said, you know what? We're not even going to fight. There's no fight.
That's really awesome.
And
full disclosure, I fight about screen time in my house. I mean, I don't want people to think I have this mastered. I have a lot of insights about it and strategies, but it's still a struggle. I mean, my 13-year-old loves to play a video game, and the challenge is he wants to play with his friends who are on their devices. And so I feel okay about a little bit of that, but he wants it every day. And so it's hard.
What does he play?
It's called Ark. It's like a dinosaur. It's sort of like Minecraft post-apocalyptic. I mean, as far as video games go, it's one I'm more comfortable with than some of the other ones. But
my son likes to play Minecraft. But then we have to coordinate with his friends when they're online and the time zones. And so then the battle that we have now really is my 6-year-old seeing his 13-year-old saying, "Hey, he gets to play. Why can't I?" You know, and so, and I'm still figuring that out.
That's
and
hard
I'm just working it out, you know, so.
Absolutely. In different ages, I sometimes try to say, my 10-year-old's pretty savvy now, but I will say, like, you know, he's older, he has more responsibilities, and therefore he has more privilege because he has more responsibility. That's just what happens. But she doesn't like that so much. But it is hard. It is a challenge. And I think that's the important thing about screen time in general is not to strive for perfection, but I always like to say, just aiming for good enough, you know, that 80-20 or 70-30, right? Where most of the time we're living and practicing and parenting within our values. And if we need to say sometimes, oh, we screwed up, or I learned new information, that's so important. As we learn more, we do better, you know, and we want our kids aren't going to just stop learning right now and this is the only rule we ever have. No, they evolve, they change and grow just like we do. And that's important. I think that's a very important parenting message. And not to beat yourself up.
Definitely. And, you know, learning, and we can share our information with them. My 6-year-old today, he had a tantrum before screen time. You know, and so I'm like, oh gosh, so then I had to have that time where we cuddle or like, what do you know, let me hold you, let's talk about this. And I shared with him some things that I was learning. You know, I said that, do you know that, you know, how they make this game? And so I just, even if he doesn't understand everything, but just me sharing with him, it helped us connect and it helped us. And sometimes me playing with him or sitting there watching him while he's playing, and then he's telling me about it. Then later on, when it's time to turn it off, then I can use that to connect with him. I saw how you did that. That was so cool.
Yes, this is brilliant. That's exactly it. And so then again, you're using, this is when I say not all screen time's created equal. Like if you're using it as a moment of connection, and again, I believe there are lots of ways to connect with our kids off screens, but there can be moments where you sit, so like at the end of a screen time, for example, like Minecraft, and my daughter loves Minecraft, very hard to turn it off. But I can sit down, I can say, I have 5 minutes for you to show me what you just built. Can you tell me about this world? And again, there's some really creative things in technology. I don't want, again, it's not all evil. It's just everything in moderation, right? So having her engage with us and having your kids share with you what they did or what they built, why they're excited, and then finding the bridge to transition out of it. You know, this may be my teacher brain thinking, but like, okay, you showed me this world you built. Let's go make a list of things on a piece of paper that you want to add to it for the next time you get a chance to play. Or draw a picture, or build it out of Legos or blocks, right? Like take the 2D world and put it back in 3D, right? That could be a really, a nice way to transition again without the conflict. So it's not like a hard stop, right? Because I know that is the hard part.
And I think sometimes I was like, you know, okay, what can they do instead? Because they're like, Mom, I'm bored. So letting them get bored, it's okay. And then maybe brainstorming with them other things that they would like to do. There's just so many art related things, craft related things or just hands-on,
Yeah.
letting them use their imagination. And sometimes as parents, sometimes we have to know that, you know what, there's a lot of things that they can do off screen. And we can
Exactly.
Google it, we can look at it, we
Yeah.
can, we can Google things to do. There are
Absolutely.
books written on things to do, right?
I love that you said that. And I often say to parents too, boredom is the birthplace of creativity. It's in boredom that kids come up with the best stuff. They're going to get messy too. I think that's the other thing is parents, we have to chill out a bit. Like we have to, okay, it's going to get messy. Toys are going to get out. Art is messy. But I talk to preschool teachers who will say like, oh, the kids don't want to put their hands in the paint anymore. They don't want to dig in the pumpkin. And because they're not used to that. And in my teacher brain goes, but that's how kids learn. It's through the sensory experience of their world. So by all means, let them get messy. That's so good for their brains. That is learning. That is development. I totally agree. I love that you said that. And giving them a list and helping them come up with stuff. I think sometimes kids need some reminders, but we don't have to play with them or provide all of the explanations, like go do this and play this way.
Exactly.
We want that creativity to bloom.
And when they have that space to think, then that's when they start doing things on their own. So we don't have to entertain them all the time.
Exactly. And it is like the best stuff comes out of those, you know, I always think about like the shower moments, you know, when you're thinking about things and you're not distracted by the rest of the world. You have the aha idea.
Exactly.
We have to give time for that. And as parents, we have to model that. We're not great at handling boredom either. What do? We reach for our phones.
Exactly.
We start scrolling. So we have to model that. And I have a really great strategy actually for parents. This is one of my favorite things to tell parents. Live your life out loud. And what I mean by that, if you're going to go and reach for your phone, you could say, I'm feeling bored. I'm reaching for my phone. I'm opening Instagram and I'm scrolling. Okay, well, there's so many great things happening there, right? You're owning that you have an emotional need to be met and you're using a screen. And then you're showing your kid, because to a child, a phone from the backside, they have no idea what we're doing. We could be doing 10 different things. And I often say that a phone, it's not a switchblade, it's a Swiss Army knife, right? It's like all kinds of multi-tools, right? And so how do we show them that we use it in all these different ways? By speaking it out loud, which is great for the modeling. It's also great for vocabulary. It's great for language development. It's great for talking about our emotions as we connect it to screens. And it's great for executive function skills. So it's a win-win-win. It's a free thing. You can do it starting today. And your kids are going to eye roll. That means it's working.
And you know, that's something that I do that too. I'm trying to get in the habit of it more. But every time I pick up the phone, even if no one's around, I'll say, and I told my husband, let's do this. So he's still like working on doing it, but I'll state why I'm using it for. Why did I pick it up? Oh, I have to call so-and-so. Oh, I have to check this. Oh, I have to reply to this email. So every time my kids know, and by the time that they're going to have phones, then they're going to know what the different reasons are why people use their phone. So if I find myself again, like, oh, let me check Instagram again, for what? You know, so it's making me more conscious of what I'm doing.
Exactly. And it's great too. And there was another moment as parents, like my kids sometimes will be like, why are you looking at your phone? So they will remind me now, oh, you're right. I need to live my life out loud. I need to say what I'm doing. And it's so good for accountability. It's so good for our own, bringing awareness to our own use of it. And again, we're not going for perfection. Good enough. It's okay to do this imperfectly, but I think it's one of my favorite tips, just because it's so easy to do. And I love that you're getting,
and we will become more intentional because our kids see us and they see us on the phone, you know. And I was just thinking, like, imagining if I grew up seeing my mom on the phone all the time, just thinking about that's depressing. I would hate that.
Yes, that's such a good point. We don't have an equivalent, really. Like the old school wall phone or something we might, but you're right. I thought about that too. I was thinking, like, you know, when you think about what a phone is, so many different, you know, it's a TV, it's a computer, it's a phone, it's a camera, it's a calendar. If we were to walk down the street holding all of these things, if we took them out of the phone into their thing, how bizarre that would look, right? That we would go to a restaurant and put a TV on the table, you know? And I just sometimes wish we could do that, because it would maybe bring our attention to how sort of absurd some of these habits have become.
And when I was thinking, like, if my parents were always on the screen, like, what would really irritate me is that I need your attention. Look at me.
Yes.
And they want us to look at them and not our to-do list the whole day or anything else.
Yeah, my husband he said this once, and I quote him all the time. He said, when you're a parent and you're looking at your phone and someone texts you, if you're talking to your child and it interrupts you, so texting is giving someone who's not even in the room permission to interrupt you. And how shocking that must feel to a child, that somebody who's literally not even around can pull my parents' attention away from me. That's pretty profound from a child's perspective. And I don't think we always think about that. Although as adults, we know the experience of phubbing, right? Phone plus snubbing, when you're talking to someone and then they automatically are like distracted by their device. So we want to, again, being intentional about it, talking about it out loud, and being aware of our own habits around it. We don't want to send the message that somebody outside this room is more important to you than you, my child. That doesn't mean they need to interrupt us. Like, again, there's another great tip that I love. A friend taught me this. If your child wants your attention, and what do they normally do? Mom, right? It becomes history. Have them come up and put their hand on your arm. Silent. They don't have to say anything. And then you put your hand on their hand to acknowledge, I see you. So it's just a touch point. And sometimes that's all they need, is that acknowledgement that I hear you, I see you, I'll be right there, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe we can't get pulled away right away. And that's okay too.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I really liked about our conversation today was how intentional, when we are intentional, that really helps us with everything. Not just understanding where our kids are coming from, but noticing and being intentional about our own emotions going through this screen time thing that we're dealing with every single day. Just like right now, my son came and he said, can I play? And even though this is not our time to play, and it's every day it's going to be like this. So instead of me fighting it like, oh, he should know by now. Yeah. I'm just going to, think again, like, of course he wants to play. And we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to go back to our routine thing, but I'm going to connect with him. And he just left because he had written me a note saying, can I play? And I said, not yet. So he's upset.
Screentime consultant. I love it that happened in the moment. That's exactly
But I think the calmer I am, the more empowered I feel. Yes. Every time I'm able to, calmly get to him and say that, you know what, it's not 2:00 yet, but you know what, let's do all these other things that we have to do on our list. Or just, let me read to you. Let me do some, he wants to connect with me. Yes. And that's what I tell myself. I'm like, okay, he wants to connect with me and he really wants to play. Yes. What can we do?
I love it too. And even if you know that screen time is coming, to prioritize the connection first, that makes all the conflict resolution and the, planning much easier. And, kids, it's developmentally normal for them not to like rules, for them to push back, because they're learning. That is what we should expect of children. And I have a wonderful colleague who says, you don't have to attend every fight you are invited to. Yeah. And my daughter loves to poke and, provoke argument. And I have said to her a couple times, I decline your invitation to this fight. I'm not having it. And then I just go and do whatever I need to do. And she's just, so sometimes we can just say, it's just not a fight we're having. We just don't we can choose not to engage in it, especially if our lid is flipped and we feel emotionally dysregulated. We have to get ourselves back together before we try to engage. So that's important too. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you so much. And before you leave, please tell us about your program and some of the things that you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, obviously I'm on social media, which the irony is not lost on me to be a screen time consultant, but it is, again, this is a tool that I use to reach as many people as possible with my message. So you can follow me here at the Screentime Consultant. And I also am about to launch a parenting course. I'm really excited about this. My background is in teaching, so I love putting curriculum together and teaching, and it's a lot of the things I've just talked about. So it's going to launch March 1st.
Okay,
It's a
great.
12-week parent class, and this change doesn't happen overnight. And
Yeah.
I know the accountability piece is so important. So for parents who really want to make those intentional changes, this is the right program for them.
Okay, great.
I just posted it. My new website, I think, actually just went live today. So
Okay, great.
there should be information there, and it's the screentimeconsultant.com. So you can find more about me there.
Thank you. And, I loved having this conversation with you. This is something that affects us all,
Absolutely.
and there's no shame in it. The more we
Nope.
talk about it and we get that support, I feel like we feel better and we can better support our kids who's, developmentally, they're not even ready for these things.
Exactly. I'm very grateful to you for inviting me here. It was really a pleasure, and love talking to you. I feel very aligned with what you're saying in
Yeah.
your message. So let's
Thank
continue
you.
to talk.
Yes,
Reach
yes.
out anytime. So
Yeah, thank
yes.
you. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to message Emily, follow her. Let me know too. Drop anything in the comments, any questions that you have. We'd love to talk more about this.
Wonderful. Thanks again. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
Emily. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please feel free to DM me, message me. I'm going to save this. And if you have any other topics that you want me to talk about next week, we're going to talk about games in general, like gaming, the gaming piece, because that's something that a lot of kids are involved in, and what we as parents have to know to make sure that it's safe, and it's something that we have to also monitor. So we're going to talk about that next week with another guest. I'll talk to you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.